Quentin Tarantino was in this?
Yeah.
When?
He's the guy. He's the guy who tells the joke about pissing all over the bar.
Quentin Tarantino looks normal. Like just a regular guy.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
What do you think? What did you think he looked like?
No, he looks like a... Like, he doesn't look like a man. He looks like a nerdy kid.
That's exactly who Quentin Tarantino is. And was at this time. I mean, he was probably 20-something years old. I mean, this movie's 25, 26 years old now.
Okay. That just looks like an extra role. Like, I don't know. It's weird that... Why is he in this? That's weird.
Hello and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil. I almost forgot the name of the show.
Oh, wow.
Weird.
We'll just change it if that happens.
Welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. I am Phil Rude, and I'm not sure of anything. I'm the dad. I'm taking a stance. I'm the dad.
And I'm potentially Austin Rude. I'm suddenly questioning everything.
Who are any of us, really? Huh.
Wake up, you're in a dream. I play the son on this show, and every week we watch a movie, and we talk about it.
Yes, we do.
That's the premise.
Stay in your lane, Austin. You're the sun.
All right.
Be the sun.
I'll be the sun.
Here comes the sun.
Do.
What have we been up to this week?
I've not been up to much. What?
Watching some Doctor Who, or...
I mean, just the usual.
I mean,
yeah. We had... Well, the series just ended of... The most recent series of Doctor Who ended. In a rather lukewarm kind of way. Just kind of... They played it into, like, a big event like Avengers Endgame, and then it just wasn't much of anything.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool. Okay. So... That'll occupy my mind for a week, but other than that, I've just been really busy, so I haven't been watching much.
Got it.
Yeah, you?
I finished the Beatles documentary. A lot of thoughts, but really, I mean, all the hot takes are out there. You don't need me to tell you about the Beatles doc, except that I really enjoyed it. And the other thing I did want to talk about is I watched a movie on Netflix called The Power of the Dog. Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, and Kirsten Dunst.
It's a big cast for a movie I've never heard of.
It's a kind of, like we've talked about, like the smaller movies that Netflix is doing, like the adult dramas.
Right.
It's a Western about two brothers running a ranch in like 1920s Montana, and one of them is very much into ranching and the other one is not, and the sort of tension between them and how it spills over to his brother's wife and her son, and everything it's about long secrets and some really dark things. It's very, very good. It's one of those very slow burn movies, but when you get about 2/3 in, everything falls into place, and you're like, start figuring these characters out, and it's really, really compelling.
That sounds cool. The title doesn't seem to relate to any of that. There's
a like a Bible passage at the end that kind of sews it all up, and it's based on a novel from like the 1960s.
Okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch was just on Mark Maron's podcast, and they talked about this, and they gave huge spoiler warnings because it is one of those things. Like, I get it, like you kind of don't want to know too much about this character going in and where things end up, but
But,
It's actually
but to get people like interested in it, sometimes you kind of have to like spoil
before
why
they got into
creative.
it.
Yeah.
Mark Maron cut in and is like, "Look, we are going to get into talking about the movie. Skip ahead 10 minutes if you care. You know what I
Right.
mean?" But I really recommend the movie. But it is it's kind of a tough watch at sometimes. Great interview, by the way, with Maron on that one. Benedict Cumberbatch. Pretty interesting dude.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, he is. But yeah, that's about it. That's about all I made time for this week. Besides the movie for this week, we watched the 1995 action movie Desperado. In the sequel to El Mariachi, the former musician arrives in a border town and gets entangled with a local drug kingpin, Bucho, and his gang. This movie stars Antonio Banderas as El Mariachi, Selma Hayek as Carolina, Joaquim de Almeida as Bucho, as well as featuring Cheech Marin, Steve Buscemi, Quentin Tarantino, Danny Trejo, and Carlos Gallardo. The original El Mariachi has a small role in this movie as well. This film was written and directed by Robert Rodriguez. Again. Just like his former one.
Carlos, that surprised me. Him being in... I didn't recognize him.
He's one of the other mariachis. The at the end when the other two guys show up.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the machine gun guitar cases.
Oh my god.
And he's also in the beginning, in the dream sequence when the mariachis are playing in the bar.
Yeah.
He's one of the other guys there as well. One of the other mariachis.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, he's in there, and he is also listed as a producer on this.
That's funny, because one of my main critiques of this movie is I want him back.
Well, you got him.
I do not care for this
Antonio
mariachi.
Banderas? No?
No. I don't think he knows who this character is.
Really?
He played him horribly, I think.
What is your complaint about Banderas' portrayal of him?
This movie seems to be a story about, like, internal conflict, but, like, there's no internal conflict on that gruff face of his. He's just, like...
He's too pretty.
He's too pretty, and, like, just, like, going through the action scenes, killing people when he needs to, and, like, being romantic when he needs to... I don't believe him. Like, I don't know. He doesn't feel like the old character, and he doesn't feel like a new character.
I think you're partially valid there. I think it is kind of an extension of the old character, but you're right. He doesn't seem quite the same guy. Not just because he's a different guy, but like quite the same character as El Mariachi. But I think part of that is we're looking at him, you know, he's been living this life for a while now. He's not like the artist looking for a place to play.
Right.
But I think probably Rodriguez just wrote the character a little bit different. He's kind of an action guy. He's kind of a romantic, and I like that because it is like he still has the soul of an artist, you know?
Yeah.
But he's also kind of a buffoon, and he's still not, like, he's great at killing people, but also kind of not. He's kind of, like, clumsy at times, too. Like, I think that's where the comedy of this comes in, and I actually like how Banderas plays it a lot of the time, where I think he plays those comedic beats really well when they come up.
When is he funny during
this movie? It's not funny, haha, I'm telling jokes, but, like, it's funny, like, in his expression, when she, like, dumps him off the counter because the drug dealer's coming in.
Right.
Like, the way he plays that, the way he plays the expressions when she's operating on him, the way he kind of when his guitar case opens up and reveals all the guns, and he just kind of has like, oh, here we go again kind of look. There's a moment when the bookstore's burning, and Selma Hayek sees the guy on the stairs and shoots him and kills him.
I love that bit.
And yeah, and then he walks by and is like he's stunned that she did it, and then he like walks by and he's like, he just shoots the guy like 3 more times for no reason. Like these little just, they're almost point to, yeah, he's good at this, but not quite. Like he's still like maybe insecure about it, and the way he plays it as just a little bit clumsy, like competent but clumsy, I think it's a really fine line to walk, and I think he walks it really well, because I don't believe anything in this movie is to be taken super seriously.
Right. I'm just thinking, like, you said goofy. I see the comedy there, but I saw him as so serious in this movie. Like, when he finds out that the kid with the guitar is a drug dealer.
Oh.
And, like, goes completely apeshit on him, like, I don't know, like, that doesn't seem like the same person as the movie. I understand the character arc we're going with here, like, he's on a dark path, but, like, it just doesn't feel continuous.
Consistent.
Yeah.
Right. That's fair. I think it is. I think maybe it is partly because it's a different actor and it's a different kind of interpretation of the character. But I think there is a difference between the way the two actors played him, and I think there's a difference in the two movies as well. Like, tonally, I think this is a little bit sillier, and but also like more of a big budget action at the same time. You know what I mean?
See, I think the last one was silly too. I think this one just kind of did it better.
It's
like,
a little smoother. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like there's the last note on that. I think he walks the line between comedy and drama really well. You have the comedy beats that are done by like Steve Buscemi. I think is blatantly funny in this movie. And then you have like dramatic beats. I think Salma Hayek, when she sees the bookstore burning, she has a legitimate dramatic moment in there. Like her face, like really, like she owns that scene. Like,
oh yeah,
she looks legitimately horrified and sad that her life's work and her mission to bring books to this town is on fire and being destroyed. And like, I love that. And I think Banderas plays it right in the middle of those two extremes and does it really well. It's not the same, I'll give you that. But I think what he does, he kind of makes the character his own and just kind of goes with it. And I think commits to that razor thin line that he's walking down the middle.
Okay. Maybe this is just because it's my first movie with him. Like, you know how you complain about...
Oh, but it's not. We've seen him before.
You can come back to that. I don't even want to know. You complain about one of the Fast and Furious actors. I think it's Vin Diesel, who like he's completely expressionless. That's what I feel like this guy is, or like Fabio. Like he's just like a pretty boy who has no facial expression.
Okay,
it bugs me.
He does.
I want to punch him in the face.
He holds his one expression through this movie. You know, like
yeah.
No, I'll give you that. But I do think Antonio Banderas is a good actor. I don't think he's just this pretty boy. You know,
sure.
Like he's a legit actor. But like, yes, at this time he was doing a lot of action stuff. He was in some terrible like assassin movie with Sylvester Stallone. But no, I like Banderas and I like him in this movie. But you're not wrong. There's not like a ton of depth to this character.
Yeah.
Like, they try to give him the backstory, the brothers, this and that, but, like, it doesn't matter. This is a surface-level movie. And I don't think it's really trying to be a whole lot more than that.
I'd agree with that. I think maybe, like, the best part of this character is maybe when he's with Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Like it's like a buddy cop kind of feel
Right.
when they're together. If that especially in the beginning where they're working together, like there's just this absurdity of them working. Like
who is this guy? How did they meet? Why is
Right.
he helping him? You know, these kind of like weird questions. Here they're in this like border town, and Steve Buscemi's like the whitest guy
that no one like questions.
Like, I love that opening scene when he's in the bar and he's like, yeah, but we're a bunch of lowlifes. You know, not like these class acts over here.
Right.
Like, you know, and
it's like, definitely not you guys.
He's really laying on the bullshit so thick. He's so freaking perfect in this movie. I love Steve Buscemi.
It was such a good opener to the movie, too.
Yeah.
Just that, like, just a story, like just to set up
the mythology,
remember the last movie, and you know, kind of all this, but done in a really clever way, and it just like kicks off the movie with a bang.
And I just love that he's completely bullshitting them. Like he's like, this is the biggest Mexican I've ever seen. And it's like, Antonio Banderas isn't a big man. Like,
no.
He's like, you know, and he's just sort of like building, the shadows followed his face around and kept him hidden. And
the visual gag at that when you see it literally happen.
And, you know, the bartender lived. Cheech is like, the bartender lives. He's like, no, the bartender got it worst of all. Like, everything they say, he like, comes back at him with another line of bullshit, and it's just I love it. I think it's so much fun.
I think what's great about that is it's like the same exact comedy that was in the last movie, just it's executed at a better level.
Right. We've got, let's not to be cruel to indie film, but like we've got better actors doing it. It looks better. It's edited together. But you know what I mean? Like, it's him talking on top of this way over the top gunfight scene. Like, and it's just so, it all just flows really, really well. And then just stops. And he leaves the bar. Like, it's no big deal. And I think it's really cool. But let's stay on that note. Like, you were stoked to see, like, you brought it up. You're like, Steve Buscemi was in this movie. I did not expect that. And I didn't even expect that you knew who Steve Buscemi really was. What do you know him from?
Well, like, everyone knows him.
Everybody knows him, but, like, are you, like, what movies, do you have, like, a go-to Steve Buscemi movie?
I was trying to figure it out, and I looked up his, like, IMDb, and there's a few big ones, like, let me see. He's in 30 Rock. That's probably just like a cameo, though. I don't even know. Big Fish. That's one that I've seen quite a few times.
He is in Big Fish. He's great in Big Fish. Yeah.
And I was going down the line. I saw Big Lebowski.
Yep, Donnie.
Reservoir Dogs. But what really stuck out to me, and this is going to age me, Monster House, the 2006 animated movie.
He's like the old man, right?
He plays the old neighbor man who's super scary and yells at them, and his voice, and it's motion capture, so it's it's like it is kind of him,
and
it's just, I don't know, something about his face or his voice like has always been ingrained in me.
He's such a unique looking and sounding person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I love what he brings to a movie. I wonder if they got him for this movie because of Quentin Tarantino, because he had done Reservoir Dogs a couple years prior to this.
It could be.
And I think at this time, probably at the time this came out, is when Tarantino, who's in this movie, as we've established.
As I realized just an hour ago.
And because him and Rodriguez are friends, right after this, I think they made From Dusk Till Dawn together, which is a Robert Rodriguez movie that I think Tarantino did some direction on. I think maybe he wrote it or wrote part of it, or they co-wrote it together, but Tarantino also stars in that.
All right.
So there is all these connections, and it makes me wonder if that's how they got Steve Buscemi to be in this movie, because Tarantino just basically brought him with. But he fits so perfectly into that role of just sort of like the weaselly guy who's kind of an informer and kind of like an errand boy for the mariachi. And then he just gets killed like halfway through the movie, and he's never brought up again.
And that was that. Like, that's it. But it works. For something... You're right. Like, he's only in, like, half the movie. Half the scenes in that part, even. But, like, it works. He feels like he's meant to be a part of this movie.
He doesn't feel like they just plugged a celebrity into this movie.
Right.
It feels like, he belongs here.
I have a personal theory that he is actually the Tortuga.
Oh, he's the turtle come to life? Oh.
From the last movie, yeah.
Maybe.
He turned into a man. We just didn't get to see that.
That could be. That's very interesting. I actually kind of like that. On this same topic.
Of turtles?
Of turtles. Of, oh my god, Steve, I'm scrolling Buscemi's filmography. I totally forgot he's in like 2 seasons of The Sopranos. And it's like he has like this great storyline that runs throughout that. Maybe it's only 1 season. But either way, it's like it's one of the high points of that series.
It's really cool.
He's so good in it.
He excels in those side roles.
And he's Randall, the evil monster in Monsters, Inc.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. They're all over the place. Tarantino, in this movie, you're not a fan of him being an actor. And I just want to address that. Like, what... Did you think he was bad?
Well...
Because I won't disagree with you. I don't think Tarantino's a good actor.
I didn't pick up on the fact that he was anyone, but like, first off, I didn't get the point of the scene in general. Like, it was just kind of like a bullshit, like, oh, this is a funny joke moment before, whatever. But I was like, we've already seen a bartender talking to a white guy who clearly is shooting the shit and doesn't actually know what he's talking about. Like, I don't know why we're seeing it again. And then, I just wasn't that impressed. And then I found out it was Quentin Tarantino, and like, I don't know how to explain. It's like seeing a teacher at like the grocery store when you're 5 and you're like, you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, you don't exist outside of school. Like,
you don't exist outside of your own filmography, like your own direction. Because that's like, if he had a cameo in his own movie, I'd be like, oh, sure, everyone does that. But like, just for him to show up in this one random...
he does that fairly regularly as well. He's in Reservoir Dogs. He's not a cameo. He has like a fairly large role. Mm-hmm. He has a big role in From Dusk Till Dawn. Him and George Clooney play brothers.
All right.
Like, you know, and yeah, he cameos in a lot of his films. I don't think he's a strong actor at all. And I do feel like this was a scene, because it advances nothing. That character dies almost immediately.
Right.
Like,
and also this is a Mexican film. It's like if you watch like a French film from like 20 years ago and you find like, I don't know, the most random person like Beyonce in it. Like, what are you doing in this movie?
Sure.
And knowing that they're friends and whatnot, like, that makes you can see the connections there, but they're just not like inherently made connections. My mind was just thrown for a loop.
I will argue that this is a Mexican film. I think El Mariachi was a Mexican film. This was very much an American film. This was I think the Weinsteins financed this. This was a American studio system film.
Okay, well, I
Like,
did recognize
you know,
that the
like, yeah,
the main language is English.
the production value is up. This, you know, El Mariachi got Robert Rodriguez this movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it got him more money, which is, like, I think why this movie, and this is why I think I'm probably more forgiving of the change to the character and the change in tone, is that this movie is a sequel to El Mariachi, but it's also almost a remake of, in the same way like Evil Dead 2 is kind of a sequel and kind of a remake of Evil Dead 1. So
Right.
so I think we're seeing those similarities between Raimi and Rodriguez continue, because this does reference El Mariachi a lot. So it is a direct sequel. He's got the scar in his hand, you know. They have the flashback, like dominoes in that one scene.
Yeah.
This is her second credit
movie ever.
and that's it. These are her two credits, and in this one, it's just they reshot the end of that movie.
I thought it was funny actually that
I think
you
it's
can
great.
tell they reshot
Yeah.
like almost to make it like look better. He's like, imagine if I had done it this way, just like doing a fan thing.
It looks so solid, except that it's Antonio Banderas in the shot, and you know, but so it does reference it, so it is a sequel, but it also, like, there's so many of the same, like, story beats. The plot is essentially the exact same. It's just that he's already the killer instead of being a mariachi who's mistaken for a killer.
Right, and then also the last movie's events are, you know, the reason for the motivation for this fight, which is he's trying to avenge Domino.
Right. He's still moving up the ladder, basically.
Right.
You know. But they even do, like, the mistaken identity thing with Danny Trejo.
Uh-huh.
Where, like, the gangsters roll up and think Danny Trejo is the mariachi and start, like, and that, I think that it is the same story beat, but I think it's also really funny, like, when Bucho's on the phone and he's like, tell me what your guy looks like.
He's confirming
and as
all
they're
of this stuff.
You know, and it's like right down to, like, he has change for the payphone, and they pull up, like, a handful of coins.
Okay, we've got all we need.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for him, and then they just are like, well, shit. But it's perfect, and I think it's a great callback to the first movie, because that was all about, like, mistaken identity. And this also kicked off Danny Trejo's enormous film career. He has basically an entire career built on being that guy.
Yeah, I've seen posts about him, like, always playing the same character.
Kind of, yeah. He's always, like, some kind of thug or killer or something, you know, like, that's basically his jam, and I think it all really started with this movie.
Apparently, Robert Rodriguez is his second cousin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just clicked on his thing on Google, and
that's
so
really
that must
cool.
be
But
how he got his start here.
It looks like, yeah, he did a bunch of TV ahead of this. Yeah, construction worker, bartender. He does play a bartender in Anchorman as well. It's so great. Oh yeah, he's in Heat. He's in From Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah, you know Danny Trejo. If you think you don't, just, like, take a look at him. And somewhere I heard a story that he, at a certain point, was, like, considering having plastic surgery to, like, fix, you know, he has, like, really deep scars on his face.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get that fixed, and his wife was like, don't do that. That's what you get hired for.
It's your brand.
Like, you're like this actual, like, thuggish dude. And that's who you play. That's like your job. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah,
it's really interesting actually to be typecast to the fact where you're like afraid to change how you look.
Yeah. And there's I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Do what makes you feel good. But like, I think Danny Trejo, has a really, he has a scarred face for sure, but he has a really interesting face. Like, and as he's aging, it's only getting more and more. He's a really interesting guy to look like. He's an unmistakable dude. Like, you go like, right. I know that face. And it's not just because he's like scarred, but he carries them, and
the facial features.
It goes with a lot of the characters he plays. There was a dude on Sons of Anarchy. He's an Irish guy. He's also in Gladiator, and he has like some real deep scars on his face as well. And they're always just sort of like played into the character. Like, he plays a biker dude on Sons of Anarchy, and it's sort of like, yeah, I believe that guy would be scarred up from something. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just sort of like, works. It all plays in, and he plays those roles really, really well.
I like when it ties into it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need the makeup to make that.
Well, and I think it plays in partly to like what we talked about last week with like the actors in indie movies, how they look like real people. Like, they don't look perfect. Like, in this movie, we have like young Salma Hayek, young Antonio Banderas. These perfect people. And then you have Danny Trejo, who looks like a dude that you could run into on the street. Like,
right.
Like, people are scarred. People are imperfect. People are, have like a lot of sun damage on their face. And it's just sort of like, he looks like a real guy and a real scary guy.
It really feels like the town of people have not changed how they look at all, but like,
right.
Suddenly these hot
these
people
gorgeous
roll into
people
town.
Roll in, and it's like, and yeah, I'll distract them with Steve Buscemi, and but
hi, I'm Domino 2, and I'm super hot.
But yeah, I love that this cast is in this movie of just and it's like small roles, like Cheech is the bartender, Cheech Marin. And then there's just like a bunch of like character actors. I know I've seen a lot of these Mexican dudes in other movies, just in small, like playing thugs or gang members or whatever. But like, these were, again, 25 years before people were talking about diversity in film. Here's a Mexican director making a movie set in Mexico, employing tons of Mexican actors to populate his movie. And at the same time, making fun of white people. All those scenes with white college kids coming in the bar they're hilarious. Like,
they are.
The college girls who are like, your service is terrible. Like, in this shitty little drug bar.
Why does it remind me so much of the episode of Arrested Development where this is such a side tangent, but the kid, what's his name?
Michael
Cera. Yeah. George. He's in college in Mexico, and like he's talking about like, oh, they love me there and whatnot, and it's like the touristy part of Mexico, right. Like, and you see everyone hating them. It's exactly like that.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because there's another Arrested Development connection here.
Is that so?
The bookstore burns down, and the money was stashed in the bookstore. There's always money in the banana stand. That's all I could think of when she said it was in the walls.
It was in the books.
It was in the books. Yeah, I love that.
Well, we always have the library.
It is legitimately sad when her business burns down.
It's like a character death.
I think I want to talk about that scene because it's one of my favorite sequences in the movie.
Okay.
And it is that thing that Rodriguez does. He does it so well in El Mariachi, and I think it's the thing that we liked about El Mariachi that we said set it apart. He knows how to build tension. And that scene where she's playing guitar while he's sleeping, and he sees the shadows coming in, and he's getting his guns, and I mean, just that we know where it's going. You see the end point of it, but waiting for it to get there. I think he does that stuff so well, where he just winds it up and lets you see where it's going, and then just withholds it from you for as long as he can.
The gun going over her face, back and forth. Oh, it's so good.
It's great.
Another scene like that is in the bookstore.
I was gonna.
Okay, when Bucho, when he comes in and our mariachi is behind the counter, and we cut to these shots, and for some reason it reminds me of like Die Hard, where it's like this dark and like he's slowly, quietly cocking his gun, getting it ready.
He's trying to slide the clip in, and on a pistol everything clicks and clacks and makes noise, and he's every time it clicks he's like and they cut away to Bucho, and it's great. That is a scene. When I think of this movie, I think of that scene, because from the very first time I saw this movie, that just caught my attention, because that tension is so freaking high there.
It's really good, and it takes a while. Yeah. Like, they let you live in that moment. And I don't know, it's just pasted so well together, the cuts between it's something that I feel like could have been in the last movie. Like, they just... Yeah. Again, it's
I think he was capable of making this scene at any point in his film career.
Yes, his skills... I mean, maybe they've grown, but, like, he was capable of this either way. It's just he has the resources now.
I think he's really great at building a scene and telling a story. And I think I think that's evident from the very beginning with El Mariachi. But I think this one, he's also developing like a little more of like a style on top of that. So like his tension is built, but like the action scenes he has are just, they're so freaking stylized. Like nothing is real in them. Like the bar shootout.
Right.
Like
the throwing knives.
The throwing knives.
All of it.
The like Banderas in the bar, he's got the gun, and he's like throwing bullets with it. And it's like, it's not how you shoot a gun. Everybody has silencers on their gun or suppressors, and they're loud as shit. So like none of this stuff makes sense. None of it is real.
Sure.
Everything is just over the top. And I think that's what he's developing in this movie. Is he's got his storytelling chops, he's got his tension building chops, and now he's kind of working on his style. How far over the top do I take it? And you see it here, you see it in From Dusk Till Dawn a lot. And I think he kind of evens out, but he's finding his way through it, and you can just kind of see like he's got money to play with here, and you can kind of feel him going, how far can I push this? How far can I take this? And like the sex scene, it's hilarious. It's so ridiculously over the top that it's like you can't even look at it and say this is sexy. It's so crazy ridiculous.
It's like 800 shots.
Yeah, he's got the spurs of his boots are like rolling over her ass, and I'm just like, this is so dumb. It's hilarious, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, all these little bits of over-the-top stylization, whether it be in the love scene or in the shootout scene, I think it all leads up to this just being like a bizarre comedy. Like, there's so much comedy in this movie.
It definitely is goofy, but...
It's not straight-up comedy, but it is like, there's so much funny moments. Not jokes.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of a funny tone on top of it.
I really can't tell. I don't think that sex scene was meant to be funny, is the thing. I really think it was made with sincerity, but it is done with like so much intense focus that it is like absurd.
Yeah. Right. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was meant to be like legit sexy, but like it reads as silly at a certain point.
Because I feel like everything's just dialed up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just everything is bumped up past reality. You know, we're almost on like a different plane. It's like reality 1.5. It's just
Sure.
up a notch, just enough to heighten every single thing. No, I don't want to update my car warranty.
Are you sure though? I mean,
Maybe. I see you got Guitar Kid on here. So let's talk about Coco.
Live action Coco was not as good as I thought it would be.
What if this was the live action Coco?
Would be kind of interesting.
I didn't expect that.
I find it interesting because, like you were saying, this movie kind of recycles like the plot elements or like characters and whatnot from the last movie.
Right.
And once again, there is like a kid caught in the middle of like this violence, but I think the Guitar Kid was done really well in this movie, and I feel like it wasn't in the last movie. Like, I feel like with this, I now realized what he was trying to do in the first movie with that kid and, like, the dream, the ball is his head.
That kid, yeah.
Yeah, there's no kid with a guitar in the
I was trying to
movie.
think, was there a kid in El Mariachi? But, like, the dream sequence kid.
Yes,
yeah.
There's a kid who is a reoccurring character, and then
right.
he shows up, like, towards the end and like doesn't get caught in the violence, but he's there to witness it.
Right.
And I think it's like this death of innocence thing that he's trying to do, but it didn't click until this movie. So I thought that was cool that he kind of went back and he did that better.
Right.
And it made sense.
Yeah, and I like that the kid was not like, he didn't become like a kid's sidekick. You know, like
that would have just been weird.
Yeah. It's just sort of like he shows up on the street and is like, show me how to play guitar. And then, later on they find out he's like a drug mule. Mm-hmm. And that scene's really cool, by the way, when like that shot of them walking down the street and the mariachi's leaving that trail of blood.
Oh, the blood, yeah.
It's shot so well. It's just a straight on... they're walking, left to right, and he's just leaving this, so much blood. There's no way he'd be alive.
It's just obscene.
Yeah, and then he confronts like the dealers in the car, and that's just like, it's so good. It's just like, it's this really good use of this kid, and then it turns like so dark at the end.
Yeah.
When he's caught in the crossfire. And it like, I did not remember that or expect like the almost dead kid at the end. Like that was shocking to me.
It was because like there's something about, the adults are having fun shooting at each other, and then, right. Oh shit, there's a kid. And
yeah,
like, because the movie has that's what it is like shootouts are a very serious thing, but this movie plays it like it's fun. And then the fun breaks when a bystander is in danger.
I think that's what reads so weird about it. I think you just nailed it. Is not just that like shootouts are shown as cool. This is in the middle of a shootout where a guy has two guitar cases that have machine. They take the guns in the guitar case so over the top. A guy has a rocket launcher in a guitar case. Like, this has become the mariachi brand, is to have weapons in guitar cases. So now the guitar case is a weapon. It's so ridiculous. It's so far over the top that nothing about this shootout is taken seriously. And then all of a sudden, dead kid. It's like, holy shit. Right. We were having fun. What did you do to me, Robert Rodriguez? What happened to the
fun?
And like, it just is so out of left field that even when you see the kid watching it, you don't think it's going to go there.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I forgot it. It's like so disturbing that I'm like, why did that not stay with me when I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but it's like, I remember him like checking his guns behind the counter, but I don't remember them shooting a kid at the end of this movie.
It was really intense.
It is. It's brutal. It's really bad. It, of course, happy ending, but like, it just is like, it's really weird. I think there is a statement about like, hey, there's a consequence to this life, and sometimes someone else pays it. Mm-hmm. There is a death of innocence thing, I think, in there. But I think the death of innocence comes more in the idea of this kid carrying drugs around town.
Yeah, to support his dad.
We didn't need to actually shoot the kid for that to come across. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems super unnecessary.
I also think this. What's interesting is like our mariachi. He doesn't like. He stands up for the kid, and he's like, "No, you shouldn't be a drug mule." Like all this, but then he still ends up involved in the incident that gets him hurt.
Right.
That's like his wake up call, I feel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And
if Domino dying already wasn't his first wake up call.
Sure. This is his revenge. This is his revenge quest for Domino.
Uh-huh.
And the idea of like, oh, well, all that gets you is other people dead. And then it's like they have the thing at the end where it's like he leaves his guitar case behind. And he's like, I'm done with this life. And then they come back and pick it up. And it's like, well, okay. All of this like theme of revenge is a nowhere track. And he's learned from that. All of that just ends up meaninless because he comes back and he gets all his guns so he can continue on his merry way.
Dad, you don't understand. It's a really cool guitar case.
I mean, it is.
You don't just leave that laying on the side of the road.
Look, it is true. What if a kid picked that up?
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of I think that's where this movie stumbles the most is when it's trying to make a bigger point that it really just has no business making. This is a fun shoot 'em up movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it is. It's a really highly stylized, fun revenge movie. And that's kind of the realm it should stay in.
I agree, but I also do like the drama to it. Like,
I think the dramatic beats of, like I said, like the bookstore burning. Mm-hmm. I think that thing, and I think that also shows like, hey, someone else is paying for your sins.
But there's even like, we talked about, like, what is Steve Buscemi's role in here? But like he has that moment where he tells him, you don't want to go down this path. It's only going to lead to people getting hurt. Kind of like hints that he's been down this himself. And then...
Sure. He's an American hanging out in Mexico. He has a backstory somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And he ran into... mariachi not doing good things, so but then he ends up dying, and that is kind of like a consequence that gets paid. It's just maybe at the wrong point of the movie.
Yeah, when Buscemi dies, it is like I said, there's no comeback to his character. He dies while Danny Trejo is trying to kill the mariachi.
Yeah.
So then it becomes the action scene between Trejo and the mariachi, and then Bucho's gang and Danny Trejo. So it becomes like this bigger action scene, and Steve Buscemi's character just gets left, like, oh yeah, we're out.
There's too many pieces. They had to clear something off the board.
But he never is remorseful. Oh, my friend died or whatever. Or he died because of me. That would have been I think a better handling of this theme of other people pay the consequence for this.
Right. He already lost Domino, and then presumably this is his friend who helped him heal from that.
Right.
And he's gonna die again because of you and gang violence, and you're not gonna show anything about it. It's a little weird.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a small nitpick on this. My bigger problem with it is I think after the bookstore fire and after he's almost gonna kill Bucho, and then he's like, "Oh my God, that's my brother." Like, I think there's like a weird pacing thing that happens there because the movie sort of like loses focus for a minute before it almost doesn't know how to resolve at that point.
Like before the shootout?
Like after the shootout, after the bookstore burns. Oh yeah. Before the big shootout
like when
in
he's
the
on
street.
the roof.
Yeah,
and
when he's on the roof
Bucho.
and he gets the gun with the scope out and he's like, "Oh my God, that's my brother. I can't kill him." And then before the big resolution.
Which, did they explain how he recognized it was his brother? Or like, I feel like I missed that part.
Yeah, he recognized his brother.
Okay.
He knows what his brother looks like.
Fair enough.
But he hadn't seen him up until that point. They didn't know what each other looked like.
Okay, because I was thinking
They
this
just-
is like a long lost brother, like...
No, he just
I never
knew,
made
like,
the connection there.
that's Bucho. That's who this drug kingpin, that's a name he goes by. And Bucho knows the mariachi. He doesn't know.
Right, so they didn't know their real names.
Right.
And then...
But there's like these weird little things that are like peppered in there. When Bucho sees the guitar kid, he kind of looks at him for a minute. And it's just sort of like, you can, knowing the ending, you know he's looking at that kid going, "Oh, my brother played guitar. My brother wanted to be a mariachi." He, like, he has like this family connection.
Isn't that like he was nice to him, and then all of his gang members were kind of like, what?
It was just, he kind of just looked at him for a minute. I think he might have said something to him. But then
there was a moment at the beginning that I clocked.
Yeah,
like that.
It was after the bar shootout, I think, when he's all in there, like figuring out what happened.
See, now I have to go back and watch it again with all of the pieces.
There's a couple little Easter eggs in there where they're kind of like he puts a cigar out in his ashtray is in the shape of a guitar, and it's just sort of like he has like this connection to the mariachi somewhere, and he's kind of hinting at that. It's actually really, I think, well done. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the plot of this movie just sort of loses focus a little bit until they come back to that last big shootout at the end. Yeah. And then that last shootout is just like, it's so over the top and crazy.
Right, it's the gun porn that we've been waiting for.
It is just like random gunshots at a certain point. It kind of like loses the thread a little bit. I think the third act of this movie is a little bit messy, but it's fine for what this film is.
I think it's a fun ride to get there.
I think it's a really fun ride. Yeah. Overall, did you enjoy this movie?
I did enjoy this movie. I liked it better than the first one.
Okay.
Not just like production wise, but like also I think this story, there's more here.
A little bit, yeah.
And it's more interesting, more engaging. I think there's more like scenes, but they're quicker, so like it just keeps you going with the flow. And I feel like this is a really fun movie to just put on.
Yeah.
And people are gonna watch it, and like it's a party movie.
Kind of, yeah. Like, you would watch this with your buddies and just be like, this is a lot of fun. You don't have to pay a ton of attention to it.
Yeah, you figure out as the scene goes on what's happening.
Yeah, it is like, whereas I feel like El Mariachi is great for kind of different reasons. And a lot of that is like, oh, you can watch El Mariachi and kind of see how it was made. And it's so interesting. And see how it does engage you despite, whatever shortcomings. This one has all the infrastructure of making a movie in place, and they're just sort of like, go with it, go, run. Right. It's really, and he does run with it, and it's really fun. So,
what do you think though? Is this a movie that you would recommend to other people?
Oh, for sure. I think this movie's a lot of fun. I don't think this movie, like I said, I think it stumbles a little bit when it's trying to be like kind of thematic. But I think Robert Rodriguez knows exactly the movie that he's making. He's like, I'm going to make a fun Mexican, like neo-Western, like a modern Western.
Yeah. And
it's just going to be over the top, and everybody's going to watch it and have a really good time. And it's going to be well written. I think the dialogue in this movie is great, in the same way that like Tarantino dialogue is great. Mm-hmm. It's not how people talk, but
that's okay.
In this world, it is. And I think Salma Hayek is super fun. She's just so much fun in this movie.
For sure.
Her whole sequence where she's operating on him and like burning him with cigarettes and shit. And
that was brutal, by the way.
He's like mocking her for having books, and she's like, "That's how I know how to operate on you, dumbass." Like, and she's just like sassy without being like #girlboss about it. You know what I mean? Like, she's just this really great, charming character, and she balances like you said, Antonio Banderas walks around with his little sourpuss face on, and she balances that out by being like really fun.
Yeah.
And then also not taking his shit. The same way like Domino in the first one was like, I'm not taking your shit. And she tried to cut his balls off in the bathtub. Like, Rodriguez writes these women to be like, yeah, you're a love interest. But you're also like super fun. Like you're more, you have a little more depth than anything else in this movie.
They're not an easy like prize. Like the
right.
They're not two-dimensional. There's something there.
Yeah, because they even show them, like, in both cases, these are women who have been given businesses by the local drug lord in an attempt to buy them.
Right.
And they've not been with them. You know what I mean? They're just like, no, I'm not that. Mm-hmm. And so it is like, there's just a little more to them.
There is a weird thing. I'm wondering if Robert Rodriguez like lost a girlfriend to a guy with a Porsche or something. Like he really is don't leave a guy for money, please. This
guy was selling dime bags on his street. It was just
so pissed about it.
I think he just reused that plot element from El Mariachi,
think so too,
and I think it's one of those sort of recycled things. But,
and I think it works.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this movie's super fun. And, I think you said it really well. Like, watch this movie with friends. It's like, you'll have this is a good, like, movie night movie. Absolutely, I recommend this. What do you think so far in terms of trilogy? We talked about, like, there is a distinct difference between El Mariachi and this movie. Do you think this is lining up to be a cohesive trilogy, or do you think it's going to be a little more like what we've been talking about, the Evil Dead comparison?
I don't think it's as disconnected as Evil Dead. There is something about the tone that stays the same. It is, you said, what did you say, a Mexican Western?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's what it is.
It's like a modern Western in the Mexican culture, you know, like, so It's still like Southwestern and it is distinctly like not America. You know what I mean? Like, it is a different world.
I don't know. I feel like they don't flow together, but they both tackle and deal with, like, the same stuff, and, like, they're in the same grouping, I'll say. So I do think the third one is probably going to be more on par with this one. Right. Because it's another studio one. And I think that's going to continue this story further than this one did. Like, this one was a rehashing that also moved the emotional beats forward. Right. And I think we're really going to get, like, the peak of it. I assume this is him going after, like, Bucho's boss, right? Like, I track down the boss of the boss of the boss.
It's like, really odd because they are characters in the third one, but I wouldn't necessarily. And this is, I have seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico one time when it first came out, so my recollection of it is pretty hazy.
You stuck to the title. You can only see this once upon a time.
But that's right.
Mexico.
That's right. I took it very seriously. Is my recollection that they are in this movie. They are not necessarily the central focus of this movie.
That's interesting.
Johnny Depp is like a CIA guy who is essentially...
Johnny Depp's the main character?
Yeah, pretty much. More or less the main character, yeah.
Boy. That's interesting.
Look.
I'm not a Johnny Depp hater.
Everybody can dunk on Johnny Depp all they want to. When Johnny Depp is doing good, Johnny Depp is really good. And I do remember Johnny Depp being pretty good in this movie. Like
just
he fits in this world surprisingly well, if I remember correctly. Sure. I may change my tune. It's a weird world.
Why
he's
not
a weird
Mexican character? Though?
Because he's a CIA
weird.
guy. That's the point. Is he's the gringo coming down to do what the CIA does, which is meddle in other countries' bullshit. That
is fair. That is what the CIA does. It's interesting though that the more money these movies get, the whiter they become.
This movie doesn't become white. Johnny Depp is in it. Like,
okay,
it's still once upon a time.
He's the main character.
It's still Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Are you gonna bag on Robert Rodriguez, a Mexican, for whitewashing his movie because he put a white guy in it?
Well, no, I'm just trying to understand. It seems
we'll watch
weird.
the movie and we'll talk about it then, because I don't remember exactly how all the pieces fit together or who gets the most screen time. But I mean, it's
all right.
It's what it is. Like, also Johnny Depp, very bankable star at the time. Like, that was the beginning of like his Pirates of the Caribbean run.
Yeah.
He hadn't blown it all by playing Willy Wonka yet. But no, I dig Johnny Depp when he's good, and I recall his character being super interesting in this, and this movie's still kind of keeping the Rodriguez weirdness going. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how it caps off and how it plays all as a trilogy, because like I said, I don't remember the movie super well, so I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed watching this. I think tonally, El Mariachi and Desperado are very similar. The big difference is in their budgets, is in their production value.
Right.
And so I think it does work well on one level as a movie and a sequel that take place in the same universe, but they look just worlds apart, and it is disjointing. And I think between that and I don't know if there's a rights issue, but like El Mariachi is never streaming anywhere, but Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico always show up together on the same so it is. I don't know if they have trouble getting the rights for all three of them to stream.
But even not on streaming, when I looked it up, like, they sell box sets that are only 2 and 3.
Really?
Yeah, that's
really
like
strange.
Most of the box sets are like that.
I wonder if that really has so much to do with where, like, El Mariachi had a successful run at like film festivals, and was like critically acclaimed, but it didn't like play wide in the United States. And then, like, if you go back to late 70s, The Road Warrior, the second Mad Max movie, was called The Road Warrior because it was getting an American release. And, like, it played in Australia as Mad Max 2. But people in America didn't know what Mad Max was. So, like, there's a weird thing about a movie that is a foreign movie, but then its sequel, like, goes international, and just like what people latch onto as the first movie. Because The Road Warrior, kind of the same thing. It kind of is like, yeah, you could watch it with no real knowledge of the first movie and not be lost. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And this movie kind of does the same thing. You get a little bit of backstory, but you could watch this cold. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is something to that. Mad Max eventually caught up with American audiences, but it's weird that there are box sets that leave out the first movie, because it's like, this is the one that gave him everything.
Right.
You know?
But maybe they think, people are going to be turned off by the production value. And
Could be.
All right, well, we'll just start them off with 2 because it's nice and polished.
It could be. It could be, yeah, the studio was like, no, we don't want that in our box set or whatever. I don't know why you wouldn't.
I don't know. I think it's
I don't think I'd buy a box set that
thing.
didn't have all 3 movies in it.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like...
Then you're just buying 2 movies.
Yeah, like I said, I want to buy that first movie. I need to...
Well,
I need a
box set, I'm sure.
Do I have friends in Mexico who will find me a box? I bet there's a box set in Mexico you can buy all
sure.
3 movies.
Send it our way.
That's it. I would love that. That's all I got for this. Let's move on to shout outs. What do you got this week, Us?
Okay. I'm shouting out a TikTok channel by the name of Miss Frazzled. This might be a bit niche to me, but I do follow a lot of teachers on TikTok, and a lot of it is just like, general, how you get your little areas of TikTok where people like discuss, and it's like a lot of shop talk, how do you get your classroom management to do this or that. But this channel, Miss Frazzled, which is her alias because she's not going to go by her real name. But she does more like, how can you be proactive in teaching kids how to be kind and like there's a word for it, like emotional learning.
Okay.
There's emotional learning, and then also teaching activism and inclusion and all of this really good stuff.
Sort of a social consciousness kind of education.
Yeah, because truly, personal opinion incoming, a lot of Western education in general is so focused on academics that we forget that a lot of kids don't get emotional learning at home and that they need that as well. And so especially for a kindergarten teacher, it makes sense for her to be focused on that. And so she teaches a lot of really good tips, and just like also from an outside perspective, if you're not a teacher or educator, it's interesting to learn about that and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and this is how I can teach my kids how to do that.
Sure. That's really interesting because I have no skin in the game. You guys are all grown. You're out of school.
That's right.
I have opinions about where personal things belong in and out of the class. I don't believe anyone should teach spirituality or religion at school.
Yes.
I don't believe they should teach or push their personal values, but the idea of like teaching that activism is something to be involved in. Teach that you are not the center of the universe, and you do need to know how to interact with other people in a way that is not. I mean, look at people in the adult world, in the grown-up world around us, who are like, I just tell it like it is. If you don't, and they're just like, and this is my excuse to be an asshole. And it's just sort of like, maybe you could learn to say that in a way that isn't mean to people. Like, like it's this.
It's crazy because I see the same exact attitude in first graders who are frustrated because I'm helping someone else with homework and they don't get a turn. And people who are waiting too long at Starbucks. Like, it's the same thing that some people have just never been taught how to emotionally handle waiting. Yeah,
it's like I was saying, I find it very interesting to sort of experiment and find where the line is.
How to do that in a classroom without overstepping.
I listened to a podcast yesterday where people were talking about schools that are having discussions about gender identity with very small children. And I have very mixed emotions about how to do that. In one hand, I think you're looking for an issue that isn't there a lot of times. And on the other hand, I say, I hear the argument that some of these kids who have these issues, this is the only place that they will hear something positive or educational about that. And
Yeah.
but I don't know where that line is, and I'm not claiming to know where that line is. I just think it's an interesting discussion because I think there's a lot of sides to it, and I think a lot of people are bringing up a lot of valid points on all sides of it. And it's just that I'm using that as an example. I'm not trying to
No, I see
drag
what
up
you're
a
saying.
whole. I just think there are things that we send our kids to school for, and it's just sort of like, yes, be hands-on with my kids and teach them about social responsibility, but also keep your personal values out of it. And I don't know, as a teacher, I'm not digging on teachers. I'm digging a hole for myself right now is what I'm doing. I'm very interested in where that line is because I don't know where it is. And I think teachers who are doing things like this are exploring that. And I think that's where I'm trying to get with this, is that I think it's cool that people are exploring that. And, you know, I'm sure teachers like that are very focused on how far can I take this, and have put a lot of thought into it. I'm not suggesting she's in there just wildly firing off her personal values and indoctrinating children into,
all right, kids,
like,
and who are we voting for?
Right.
Joe Biden.
Right. It's like this Fox News nightmare of what happens when you send your children to liberal education facility.
Right.
And but yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion to have. I'm gonna take a look at that. That's a long-winded way of digging a hole for myself, trying to get out of it with a compliment. But no, I'm interested by interesting conversations at this point in my life, especially when I don't have kids in school and I have no stake in the game.
It's a very nuanced, difficult conversation. Personally, I feel that there's always going to be bias no matter what. You can't separate yourself from your bias, but you can teach in a way that divorces yourself from it. Like, as a small example, I work in the cafeteria. Sometimes, like, kids will curse, and, you can't curse. That's a rule.
Right.
So, but instead of saying, hey, that's a bad word, hey, don't do that, or, like, shaming, hey, some other kids have a problem with that word.
Right.
Don't say it around them.
Right.
Respect their beliefs. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Is teach not this is the right, this is the wrong, this is what I think. Just some people think this.
Yeah.
Be respectful of
that's
them.
that's not a public use word kind of thing.
Exactly. So
cool.
Yeah. Other than difficult discussions, what are you shouting out?
I have nothing difficult about this. This is if you have shouted this out before, I apologize for stealing it, but Captain Midnight. This is nothing new. A lot of people know about this channel. He's a great YouTube channel.
Captain Midnight's awesome.
A lot of like retro commercials in his videos, I think, and some of them are things from like my childhood that I always get like a little mini flashback. But he talks about a lot of pop culture stuff, and I think I had seen his videos like as suggestions, but you linked me to one about like AMC and AMC original programming, like Mad Men and
oh, sure,
how it all went downhill when they bet it all on The Walking Dead. So thank you for that, because I love this guy's channel. He covers a lot of pop culture, a lot of franchises and stuff, and talks really frankly about the good and the bad of a lot of them in a really like, I think it's a positive way to critique something, and he's just generally a really good video essay guy.
Yeah. One thing I like about him is that he kind of like he knows, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff, too.
Yeah.
And then, like, he just kind of knows all the angles. So he just kind of gives you the entire story.
Yeah, he's really good. And they're not, like, long videos. He's able to pack it in a 20-minute video talking about... I watched one about, like, the Power Rangers. And I'm not even into the Power Rangers, but... I think he's really well versed and he's really good at video editing and writing essays. So
he for sure is. Definitely worth a shout out.
Speaking of essays, we are going south of the border one more time when we watch Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
That's right,
week.
Essays.
What do you think of that segue?
That was...
I'm very proud of that one. I might talk about that all week.
Oh, boy. Let's hope your segues into bragging about that are better.
Muchas gracias for listening to this episode of The Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. If you enjoy our show, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. It helps our visibility, and it helps us grow the show, and you can even leave that review in Espanol if you wish. Us.
Boy. Tu es loco. Another way to help us grow is to tell a friend. You can tell your friend in any language, but they probably are going to need to at least understand some English to listen to our show and get something out of it.
This genius, yeah.
But yeah, that's it. What do we have next week?
I already told you. You remember my great segue into saying we're watching... All right, Oz, what's your social media?
Oh boy. My social media is on Twitter. I'm Austin and Rude, and I'm also Old2 Review. How about you?
PhilRude.com, also at PhilRude and at PhilRude75. Posts are running a little bit behind, and so is the artwork. It will be up later this week. Austin, do you want to read the credits?
Yep. We did it all ourselves.
There you have it. We'll see you next time on The Picture Show.
See ya.
Adios.
Muchachos.